Coming at you from St. Petersburg, Florida today. Coffee is in the cup. Jax is on the lap. Man, it's only Wednesday, but it feels like it might be Friday. Such a busy week. Couple things to share with you. Interesting things to share that I think really relate to the world of being. And as a reminder, I do these lives just to share what's showing up in my coaching practice. Hey, Michael, good morning. And with folks I work with, I coach at the level of being, right? I have the URL, Coach of Being, right? When people say, oh, are you a life coach? I say, no, I'm a coach of being. So my intention with these lives is just to share stuff that comes up in conversation that relates to approaching life from a state of being. And hopefully, if you're watching, you have picked up and read at least once the book of Being, The Ultimate Coach. Steve Hardison is my coach. I'm very grateful and privileged to work with him. I'll be headed out there next week. It's been a month. He was on vacation in NOLA with Amy, celebrating the launch of the book. So had a rare bye week, I guess you would call it, which is always nice because it's a little more time to integrate and to create. But one of the things that has actually shown up a number of times this year with folks, and some of these are coaching clients, some are folks in my small group coaching program, and some are just folks that know me that have reached out and wanted to, get some advice or get some thoughts. And it's around the topic of changing jobs, getting a new job, taking a new position. And not surprising, right? At the end of the year, people close out the year. Oh, Jax is snorting. Wait to get their bonus or final commission check, and then they've got job offers in hand. Which, as an aside, is always fascinating to me that employers don't realize this and have all sorts of other conversations to see if that's happening. They're sort of shocked when there's this wave of departures in January, but that's another topic. So several folks approached me and said, I'd love to get your thoughts, advice. I'm trying to make a decision. Now, something very interesting. When folks, ask for a little bit of my time, I always give it to them. And when they want to have a conversation about a what should I do, I want to get your take on something, your advice, I don't ask them and often don't let them share everything that's going on, right? Usually when you go to want to get advice from somebody or pick their brain, well, let me give you the situation. What I know to be true is whatever they're telling me is the situation from how they see it, from whom they're being. So from whom they're being, there's only going to be a limited set of options here. I'm cautious to try and keep myself from getting enrolled in their view of what's happening, that they're creating is happening. What I'll typically start with is, what's the question you're looking to answer? What's the question, the answer to which, if you had, this would be a great conversation. I would have served you powerfully. And right then and there, that's serving them, because oftentimes they haven't formulated a question. People come to us as coaches or consultants or whatever, and they want to kind of dump a bunch of data on us. Jack's getting a little antsy. We'll try this way. And, then we'll just talk about it. Well, in my experience, somebody's coming to me because they need to make a decision, right? There's a decision to make. Well, let's understand what that decision is by asking the question, what's the question you want to ask? You'd also be surprised how often somebody comes and wants advice to make a decision and there's no decision to be made. So, just using the example of a job switch, a job change situation, there have been countless times where folks have come to me looking to get advice on should they take this job, when I peel back a couple quick layers, what question you're looking to answer, they don't have a job offer yet. So isn't that interesting? We're trying to decide, do I take the job? You haven't even gotten the offer yet. To which I would say, go get the job offer. And then call me. Hey, Tony, good morning. We finally got some sun here. It's been gray all week. I don't know what's going on where you are. Probably sunny. Anyway, these two folks did have legitimate job offers. And they both characterized it like they were choosing between two jobs. And when we really focused on what's the question you're trying to ask, what we saw was it's not two jobs, it's should I stay or should I go? Very different question. It's not like, a junior, executive trying to decide, okay, what's my first job? They have a job. Should I stay at this job or should I leave? Now, in one case, one of the individuals had not accepted the offer. Right? He had an offer, he hadn't accepted it. In the other case, the person had already sought an offer outside, accepted the offer, told his employer, I'm out. They countered. So very similar, but a little nuance here, right? Now, there's no stories, how long you've been there, what's going on with your boss, the environment. Really, just give me the facts here. And even slowing people down to really ask the question, what question are you asking, serves people powerfully, right? It has the potential to shift their state of being from like running away to moving towards, right? So one of these folks has a job. It's been countered. Should I stay or should I go? Counter offer. Should I stay or should I go? First time I'd be saying, I'm leaving. First time I'd be, telling them I'm gone. And even that's interesting because what I pointed out to the individual was, hey, there may be more decisions. Know that as soon as you accept the offer, if that's what you choose, and you go back to your employer, they're likely going to counter and try to keep you. So we can have another conversation. Let's resist the temptation to make too many decisions, right? What's the next decision you need to make? What's the next action you need to take? And let's look at that. And let's look at who you're being and what you're seeing. Now, with these two individuals, actually both of them that I'm speaking about, they're very early in their journey with me in the creating your extraordinary life experience. So they have a concept of being. We haven't done a lot of coaching around it, so I didn't want to get too deep in being work. I wanted to make it real simple. So I shared some knowledge, an approach that I first learned from Michael Neal. A couple of years ago, my wife and I had the privilege to travel over to Singapore. Michael Neal was putting on a week-long, very small group event, and I'd never been to Singapore. I'm like, cool, let's do it. And really wonderful. We had 5 days, just he and 10 of us, and my wife and I were 2 of us. Really incredible experience. And it was all about tapping into our inner knowing. Some would call it our inner intuition. Some would call it the voice of God or consciousness or what have you. But there was this concept throughout the week we spent together of a distinction between our thinking and our knowing. Thinking being the thoughts in our head. Hey, good morning, Chris. Thinking's being the thoughts in our head that we churn over, and our knowing being that, inner sense of knowing, inner wisdom, voice of God, whatever. I don't feel the need to explain it because every human on this planet has had the experience of a knowing. Oh, I just know I need to do this. No real explanation. And then our thinking kicks in. So the experience with Michael Neal was all about getting better at listening to our inner wisdom, and as part of that listening, quieting all the thinking about it and starting to discern the difference, right? As a side note, shortly after returning from that experience, I came back to the States. I actually read Michael Singer's Surrender Experiment, which is an incredible book. Now, interestingly, Untethered Soul I didn't like. I read the first couple of chapters and I liked those, and then it wasn't me. But I loved Surrender Experiment. And the Surrender Experiment is essentially a biography of Michael Singer and his decision in his early 20s to surrender to the will of the universe, to let go of the thinking. He noticed there was a lot of thoughts in his head all the time. He said, what if I didn't pay attention to those? I just kind of listened to how I was being guided. Incredible book. I thought that was a great idea. I was like, hey, I'm going to do that. So 2020, I think it was the year of the Townsend Surrender Experiment. Like, I'm just going to do what appears to show up and notice where I have an opinion of it and try to let that go. And that's a whole other conversation. But one of the things that Michael Neal, shared, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Michael Neal's work is phenomenal. You should check him out. The Inside Out Revolution, Super Coach is his. I think he coached with Steve Hardison about a decade ago. It's one of the things that led me to Steve was I'd coached with Rich Litvin, coached with Michael Neal, and they all coached with this guy named Steve Hardison. So yeah, we had a lot of conversations that week about this idea of being guided by our inner knowing and learning to distinguish that from, Tony, he is, right? And distinguish that from our thinking, right? My thoughts about something versus my knowing about something, and then my thoughts about my knowing. And so many interesting conversations. One of the things that Michael shared is his belief that the universe always provides perfect feedback. Are we going in the right direction? Should we go a different direction? However, that feedback only comes after taking an action, after a step. And I don't remember I think he did create it this way, and I use the analogy all the time. It's like the kids' game of hot and cold, right? In the game of hot and cold, somebody hides something while somebody else's eyes are closed, and then, okay, you start looking for it. And as you're looking, you get some guidance. Getting warmer, oh, it's blood. Or getting colder, oh, you're freezing. And that helps you get to it. What doesn't happen is you don't receive any guidance if you just stand there. If you just stand there looking around, trying to think about where this thing is hidden, nobody's going to tell you anything. You have to take a step. And he used that and shared that as an incredible, I thought, metaphor for life, right? Life gives you perfect feedback as soon as you take an action, right? Isn't that awesome, Chris? As soon as I take an action, life lets me know was that the right step. The only problem comes from the fact that we desperately want to know it's going to be the right step before we take the step. And in fact, the woman I was paired off with, we were kind of talking about this whole concept. It was so funny because we were talking about it. She goes, yeah, but how do you know if you're going to go the right way if you don't get told until you take the step? And I'm like, exactly. And that was like mind-blowing to her. But that's life. We sit here going, is that the right way? You're never going to hear anything. As soon as you take a step, boom! Powerful feedback. So I shared it with these two folks, right? And in the context of all you can do is make the next decision in front of you. You can't predict how it's going to go and know that you'll get the right feedback. And notice where the thinking mind wants to know what's going to happen 3 steps down the road, right? So that was kind of a fun direction with these two folks. The other exercise, if you will, that I gave them, and I can't remember if I did one or both of them, was a way to make decisions that really relies on and, well, requires you to tap into your inner knowing. And it's a very simple game where you figure out a question. What's the question I'm trying to answer? And it must be a question that is answered with either yes, no, or I don't know. So should I work for this company or that company? Well, I couldn't use this exercise, but should I leave my current job or should I go to the startup? Would be a question. So each of them formulated a question. I said, okay, I'm gonna ask you a question and just tell me what pops up. Don't think about it. And usually I'll kind of distract him a little bit. Is your name Mike? Yes. Is it sunny where you are? No. Should you go work for the startup? Yes. Like it was like that with one of them. I was like, there you go. You know what you need to do. He was like, yeah, I do, don't I? How cool was that? Now, the other individual, we talked on Sunday and played the same exercise. Is your name Bob? Is it sunny where you are? Do you like cheese? Should you go work for the startup? I don't know. I said, wonderful. Stop right there. Right? Because here's the little trick about that exercise. We always know what to do. Sometimes the answer is, I don't know. Right? When presented with anything, our inner knowing always has an answer. Yes, no, or I don't know. In my personal experience, this is what Michael shared, and I can validate with my personal experience. You can validate it with yours. The only problem is we hate I don't know. As soon as we get I don't know from the inner knowing, the wisdom, we immediately start thinking about the problem, trying to turn that I don't know to a yes or no, because we're uncomfortable with I don't know. And what Michael Neal shared, which was very powerful, was if we can just sit in the I don't know, it will turn itself into a yes or a no. It will turn into a yes or no of its own accord. No effort required, except noticing when we desperately want it to be a yes or no right now. So what I said was, beautiful, you are at I don't know. And I've used this with folks who are trying to change jobs, people are trying to leave relationships, very important decisions we always know. And my instructions to him were, now go away and spend all day and as much of tomorrow as you can in this space called I don't know. And notice all the times you want to know right now. And let that go. Now, throughout today or tomorrow, feel free to play the game yourself, I said. Do I want to say? I don't know. Cool. Sit with I don't know. And I promise you, if you sit with I don't know, the answer will emerge. You'll know when you're supposed to know. Might be an hour, might be 24 hours, might be a week. Anything that happens before then is your thinking mind trying to force a yes or a no based on logic. It's not the wrong way to do things. That's a viable technique that all sorts of people use. Man, Jax is really snorty today. So, that was kind of fun. The yes, no, I don't know. Yeah, great point, Chris. Yeah, choosing not to choose. It's okay not to know. And it's even okay for simple things. Sometimes Louisa will say to me, hey, where do you want to have dinner tonight? I don't know. Well, when will you know? I'll know when I know. Trust me, I've never not had dinner. I've always managed to figure out a place to eat. But this idea that I got to know right now is what shifts us from our knowing in this comfortable ease state of, hey, we'll just do what we're supposed to do in the moment, to, I got to know, I got to figure out what's right, what's wrong. Let me build a chart. Which, again, it's not a flawed way of decision making. But I will say the more that I surrender to this, I'm going to go with my inner knowing, the easier decisions are and the better things tend to work out, right? I look back on my life and the things that caused the most effort, suffering, pain, stress, you name it, were those situations, circumstances, and decisions where I agonized over them, where I thought I had to get it right. I felt like I was going to figure it out. And the things that were the most magical and powerful in my life, the things where I look back and go, holy shit, I wouldn't be here if not for that. They weren't logical decisions. They weren't decisions or choices of my thinking. They were of my knowing. I just knew to do it. I knew I needed to, head west after college. I just did. Why? There's no reason. I figured it out. I knew I needed to move to Colorado. I knew I needed to go get a job at 27. Right? Didn't really have a real job. I worked in bike shops and stuff. And on and on and on and on. So the less I've allowed my thinking to get in the way, the more I've been able to tap into my knowing, well, I don't know. Things go pretty well. So, that's what I got for today. Hope that's interesting and useful. I invite you to play the yes, no, I don't know game on your own. If you've got questions about this, hit me up in a message, or if there's any way I can be of supportive, do let me know. Have an amazing Wednesday and a wonderful rest of your week.